There's a peace that surpasses all understanding, a calm in the storm that only comes when you realize you don't have to face life's battles alone. No matter what you're going through, no matter how hard it gets, God is there. Right there in the midst of it all. He's the steady hand guiding you, the strength when you feel weak, the hope when all seems lost. Today, let's talk about trusting God, because He's with you in every situation, and He never lets go. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? Sometimes it's with joy, but other times it's with hardship, confusion, or pain. In those moments when the weight of the world feels heavy, it's easy to wonder, where is God in all of this? But let me tell you this truth, God is there. He hasn't abandoned you. He hasn't forgotten you. He's working behind the scenes, even when you can't see Him. And while it may not always feel like it, He's holding you right there in the palm of His hand. Trusting God means believing that He is present in every season of your life, especially in the difficult ones. When the storms rage and the waves crash over you, God is the anchor that holds firm. Isaiah 41:10 tells us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." This is His promise. He is always by your side, no matter what. You can trust Him because He is faithful in every circumstance. One of the hardest things to do is trust God when we don't understand what's happening. It's in these times of uncertainty, when the path ahead looks unclear, that faith becomes so important. God sees the bigger picture. He knows the end from the beginning. While we can only see a tiny fragment of the story, God knows the whole narrative, and He promises that it's a good one. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him." It's natural to feel doubt creeping in when life doesn't go as planned. But even in the chaos, God's presence remains constant. His voice, gentle yet strong, whispers, "I'm here. Trust me." He asks us to lean not on our own understanding, but to lean on Him, to trust His timing, His ways, and His heart for us. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." When you can't make sense of your situation, trust that God already has a plan. The beauty of trusting God is that it takes the burden off our shoulders. We don't have to figure everything out. We don't have to carry the weight of every problem. God invites us to cast our burdens on Him because He cares for us. 1 Peter 5:7. He doesn't just want you to survive life's challenges. He wants you to thrive, resting in the knowledge that He's in control. So no matter what you're facing, give it to God, lay it at His feet, and let Him work it out for your good. Sometimes we hold on too tightly to things we were never meant to control. Whether it's fear of the unknown, the desire for answers, or the pain of past wounds, we cling to these burdens, thinking we have to fix everything ourselves. But God is inviting you to release it all, to let go, to stop striving and start trusting. When you surrender to God, you're not giving up. You're stepping into His perfect plan for your life. It's in surrender that you find peace, because God is always ready to fight your battles. Even when life throws curveballs, God is your shield and defender. He knows the struggles you're facing right now, the worries that keep you up at night, the pressures that weigh on your heart. And He's already working on your behalf, even in ways you can't see. Psalm 46:1 says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. His help isn't far off or delayed. It's ever present." God doesn't abandon His children, and He never will. Think about the moments in life when things felt hopeless, when you couldn't see a way forward. Now look back and see how God showed up in those moments. Maybe it was through a sudden breakthrough, a kind word from a friend, or a door opening where you least expected it. Those moments are reminders that God has always been there. He will always show up for you, sometimes in big ways, sometimes in small ways, but always right on time. Trusting God doesn't mean that you'll never experience challenges. It means that, in those challenges, you'll have the unwavering assurance that God is with you. He walks with you through every valley, every shadow, and every storm. He is your constant companion, a light in the darkest night. Psalm 23:4 reminds us, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Trust in His presence, even in the valleys. God's timing is often different from ours. We want things to happen now, but God sees what's best for us in the long run. His timing is perfect, and He knows exactly when to move in your situation. Trusting Him means being patient, even when it's hard. It's about believing that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for your good. Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." So take heart. God's perfect timing will bring about the breakthrough you've been waiting for. It's in the waiting that our faith is strengthened. Waiting isn't a passive season. It's a time to grow closer to God, to deepen your trust in Him. While you wait for answers, God is preparing you for what's next. Sometimes the greatest miracles happen not when we receive what we want immediately, but when we learn to trust God in the waiting. James 1:4 says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Trust that God is using this season to shape you for greater things. Every storm you face is an opportunity to see God's power at work. When you're at your weakest, that's when God's strength shines the brightest. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Don't be afraid of your weakness. It's the very thing that allows God to demonstrate His greatness in your life. In your moments of doubt and fear, lean into His strength and watch Him move. When we look at the world around us, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. The uncertainties, the struggles, the hardships, they can all seem too much to bear. But remember, God is bigger than anything this world can throw at you. He is sovereign over every situation, every detail of your life. Romans 8:30. reminds us, if God is for us, who can be against us? There is no challenge too great, no problem too big that God can't handle. Trust in His power to carry you through. Sometimes trusting God means stepping out in faith, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's about taking that leap, knowing that God is there to catch you. Like Peter stepping out of the boat and walking on water toward Jesus, you're called to trust that God will uphold you, even in the most impossible circumstances. Matthew 14:29 shows us the power of faith. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. Don't be afraid to step out in faith. God will be with you every step of the way. When you trust God, you open yourself to His peace, a peace that doesn't come from having all the answers, but from knowing the one who holds all the answers. Philippians 4:6-7 encourages us. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. God's peace is available to you in every situation. Just trust Him. You may not know how your story ends, but God does. He has already written every chapter, and He promises that the ending will be good. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. When you trust God, you're trusting in the goodness of His plans for your life. Rest in that assurance. Your future is secure in His hands. God never promised that life would be free of trials, but He did promise to be with us in every trial. His presence is your comfort, your strength, and your hope. Even in your most difficult moments, He is working all things for your good. Romans 8:28 reminds us that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. Trusting God means believing that even the hardest circumstances can be used for His glory and your growth. As you face challenges, remind yourself of the victories God has already won in your life. Look back at the moments when He showed up, when He made a way where there seemed to be no way. Those moments are proof that God is faithful, that He will come through for you again. Trust Him to be the same God who delivered you before and who will deliver you again. God sees your tears, He hears your prayers, and He knows the desires of your heart. Psalm 56:8 tells us that He collects every tear in a bottle, meaning that nothing you go through is unnoticed by God. He is intimately aware of your pain, and He promises to bring healing and restoration. Trust in His compassion, knowing that He is working to heal every hurt and restore every broken piece of your heart. Trusting God doesn't mean you'll never face fear, but it does mean that you'll have the courage to move forward despite it. Fear may knock on the door, but faith opens it, knowing that God is on the other side. Joshua 1:9 reminds us, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." You are never walking alone. God is guiding every step, even in moments that seem uncertain. In the trials, God is refining you. Just like gold is purified in the fire, sometimes we are shaped through challenges. But it's not for your harm. It's for your growth to bring out the best in you. Zechariah 13:9 says, "I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them." Trust that through every fire, God is molding you into something precious, something stronger and more beautiful than before. When you're faced with impossible situations, remember that you serve a God of the impossible. Luke 1:37 declares, "For nothing will be impossible with God." Whatever you're facing today, whether it's a mountain that seems too high or a valley that feels too deep, God is able to move mountains, part seas, and bring life where there was none. Don't limit what God can do. Trust Him for the impossible because that's His specialty. One of the greatest acts of faith is trusting God when He's silent. There will be seasons where it feels like God is quiet, but that doesn't mean He's absent. His silence is not His absence. In those moments, He's asking you to trust Him even when you don't hear His voice. Just because He's silent doesn't mean He's not working. It's in the quiet that God often does His deepest work. Trust that, even in the silence, God is preparing something amazing for you. As you walk through life, you'll face many battles, but remember, the battle belongs to the Lord. Exodus 14:14 encourages us with this powerful promise. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. God is fighting on your behalf, so there's no need to be overwhelmed or discouraged. Your victory is not dependent on your own strength, but on God's power. Trust Him to fight for you and rest in the assurance that He will never fail. In every situation, in every storm, trust that God is with you. He's not distant. He's right there, guiding you, loving you, and carrying you through. No matter what you're going through, God is your refuge, your strength, and your constant help. Hold on to His promises, trust in His timing, and rest in His love. You don't have to face anything alone because God is always with you. Thank you for watching. If this message encouraged you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Leave a comment below about how God has shown up in your life, and let's continue to build each other up in faith. Remember, God is always with you in every situation. Stay strong, keep trusting, and be blessed.